Welcome to Forum 360, a global outlook with a local view. I'm your host, Pat Simons. Our guest today is Holly Harris Bane, President of Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education. This council believes that college-level education is the fuel to a vital regional economy. Holly will talk with us about the work of the council and what part it plays in promoting higher education and its positive impact on our economy. Welcome to the show. We're really glad you're here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I thought we could start off talking a little bit about your background and what brought you to this position as president for the council.
So my history is always 1 foot in higher education, 1 foot in government, 1 foot in business. And I have 30 plus, close to 40 years in the higher education space. And I spent time in the international education space, and I spent time at the Bliss Institute of Applied Politics, launching that with the director, John Green. And then spent some time working for Governor Taft, and then went back and did strategic initiatives for Luis Perenza at the president of the University of Akron. And the next thing I know, I'm president of the Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education. But all of that is to say, I brought with me to the position at NOCHE a wealth of higher education experience. There's probably not one area of higher education that I've not been involved in, whether it's in the classroom, internships, new market development, so IT, online learning, so lots of experience that I've brought to the council, and happy to be here.
Well, thank you. It sounds like a perfect match. And I do want to clarify that when we're speaking today, I'm going to refer to you as the council.
Okay.
It's the shortened version.
Okay.
But if people hear you say NOCHE, they will know that's the acronym
That's
that you
correct.
use for the
That is
organization.
correct. That is correct.
Can you give us a little thumbnail sketch of the history of the council? Because it's been around a very long time, and then it has evolved into a little different organization.
Yeah. It's actually always been about talent development for Northeast Ohio. Actually, NOCHE is, even though it's the Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education, it was founded by the business community in Cleveland, Ohio. So business leaders way back in the 1950s identified that increased talent supply was needed for the market and the new job opportunities emerging in the 1950s after World War II for the Cleveland area. And so business leaders came together to form the Northeast Ohio Council for Higher Education, which back then was called the Regional Council on Higher Education, plus some of the smaller private institutions in Northeast Ohio. And the goal was to create a community college that would provide the talent for our jobs in Northeast Ohio. So Cuyahoga Community College was one of the first products, for lack of better terminology, that NOCHE was engaged in through the business community. And then a public university was deemed as needed, and so Cleveland State University was created. And then over time, NOCHE was very active in the partnership that became Case Western Reserve University. That took us up to about the 1970s, and in 1980, I think, there was a sense that this needed to be less Cleveland-centric and more a regional organization. And so that's when it became the Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education. Northeast Ohio over time, and if you look at different entities, the county measure is slightly different, but historically we were 16 counties and now we're 23 counties. So it's a very, very large. We go all the way to Youngstown, Cleveland, down to Ashland, out to Lorain, Elyria. So it's a very, very large footprint, which means I have put quite a few miles on my car since I took this position. I'm right now at 237,000 miles on my car, and it's hanging in there.
How are you funded, and are you a nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit 501c3, and it's interesting. We're just now at NOCHE finishing up with a finance task force where we're looking at other higher education consortium like ours in Northeast Ohio, and to look at how they're funded and due structures, et cetera. And we are funded in a fairly similar way to a lot of these educational consortiums. Higher education are our primary members in terms of due paying, but this year especially, we have a board made up of business leaders, and our board representatives have really stepped up and helped to fund the NOCHE services. Okay. So it's been a higher education board made up of business leaders and higher education presidents. Historically, the majority of the dues and the funding for the initiatives have come from the higher education community, but the business leadership, many companies like Huntington, Eaton, PNC, Juergens, I'm going to leave out some major companies here, have been major funders of NOCHE. And the foundations in Northeast Ohio, Cleveland Foundation, Gunn Foundation, GAR Foundation, Akron Community Foundation, they have also been major funders for specific initiatives that have been part of NOCHE over the years.
It sounds like it's been a very progressive history in terms of education and very well funded and supported. I thought perhaps we could talk a little bit about your the services that you provide, and then we'll go deeper in some other questions.
So one of the things I like to say about NOCHE is if you go back to the very foundation and where we are now, it's always about the talent supply needs of Northeast Ohio. And that's why we have this board, and I'm getting to your question, but that's why we have this board made up of business leaders in higher education. We produce the talent. K through 12, higher education, we produce the talent, business are the receivers of talent, and it's a symbiotic relationship. And so one of the major parts of the services that NOCHE has historically been part of, before a lot of other entities in Northeast Ohio, nonprofits that we're part of, is the internship program. It's a very, very robust internship initiative. We know that internships help to provide the talent supply that our businesses in Northeast Ohio need. And we know that if a student does an internship, like some of the individuals that work here at Forum 360, if students do internships, one, they're more likely to stay and graduate in a timely fashion from college, stay and be engaged in the community upon college graduation, and be able to really blend the classroom learning experience with the higher education, the classroom experience with the business experience. And these students often bring phenomenal skills, especially in the technology side, into the businesses. So the internship programs, recruiting businesses, training businesses, especially small, medium-sized companies, helping students find internships in Northeast Ohio is a major part of our program service. Over the years then, Pat, that's been the one consistent program, but then over the years, depending upon the presidents, the business community, the needs of the community, some of those priorities have really shifted. So sometimes it has been about, in the 2000 decade, it was about degree completion and making sure that our students were graduating in a timely fashion from higher education. In the 1990s, it was really about college access and making sure that all students, regardless of background, first generation, gender, cultural orientation, had access to our programs in sustainable access and sustainable graduation from our colleges and universities.
Well, it sounds like a win-win.
We feel it is.
It also sounds like you've constantly got your finger on the pulse of change and what is happening in society, which is really important as well.
We try to, right.
I do want to ask you a little bit about in your strategic vision, one portion of it says that you focus on degrees that have value in the marketplace. And it's kind of like degree to job. And I was wondering, for people who pursue a more general liberal arts path, is there an option for them in
Absolutely,
this?
Absolutely. This is has always been, and especially I would say the last 10 years, a very robust conversation among our faculty within our institutions of higher learning. Certainly, any individual that goes to, especially a four-year public or a private liberal arts university or college in Northeast Ohio, they're receiving a very well-rounded education. It is important that our students are, regardless of their major, whether it's engineering or business or English, which is what my son graduated in college from, regardless of the major, the student needs to have a well-rounded education, and our faculty are teaching our students to be critical thinkers, teaching them to be resilient, teaching them how to work in small groups, teaching them how to be articulate, in both verbally and in written communication. All of the things that we know that employers need as they our students enter into the workforce. In the last 10 years, though, there's been a lot of research around the job demands around industry sectors in Northeast Ohio and the students that are graduating. And we are graduating students with well-rounded education, but we increasingly are trying to listen to what the industry sectors are saying they need and make sure that we are providing enough folks graduating in IT and in the specializations in IT they need, that we're graduating enough students who are in accounting or finance. And so it's not just producing a well-rounded student, which we hope all of our institutions, and we know they are, but it's also being very cognizant of what the industry sectors need, and then making sure that those we are moving enough students into the pipeline to be able to receive those jobs upon graduation.
Well, it sounds like it's helping the students make decisions too, because they are aware of those trends.
Absolutely.
And if they have an interest, then they know there's a place for them to go.
And that process, if I may add, starts at a very young age. And I know that was one of the things that you and I spoke about earlier, but it does start at a young age. And increasingly, higher education has been partnering, I would say very strongly in the last 15 years with our K through 12 partners, and making sure that students do understand what the different job opportunities are. We did an impact assessment recently that talked about how are we doing in Northeast Ohio in producing the degrees that are needed within the industry sectors in Northeast Ohio. And one of the things that we have grown tremendously in is producing an increased number of students in the STEM area: science, technology, engineering, math, medicine, and now they've also added arts within that. And so it is a process that begins young, higher education, K through 12, and increasingly the business community being part of that education process.
Oh, that's very good news. Just speaking about your structure, you have a board of directors that are named as directors and officers, and on that board there seems to be a very good balance between business and academics. Wondering, does that group lobby on behalf of higher education with the legislature, and do you have to operate under any state auspices? So
I want to answer your question. I'm going to answer it first, but I also want to talk about our board because the makeup is very unique, not just in Ohio, but in the United States. So we are not NOCHE, or no officer of NOCHE is a registered lobbyist with the state. Okay. And so when one says, does one lobby, we are not registered lobbyists. In higher education, specifically in the business community, they have registered lobbyists to lobby on behalf of the policy and the need area of the industry sectors and of the higher education industry. However, and I teach political science, that's my discipline, and so what I always tell my students is one advocates on a regular basis. And so if one thinks of the word of lobbying as advocacy, we are certainly an advocate for our institutions of higher learning in Northeast Ohio. We have a conversation taking place next week with Senator Matt Dolan, who's a representative, state senator from the Cleveland area, who has a very strong regional focus. And he is meeting with NOCHE to talk to us about talent supply issues and how higher education is responding and our perceptions regarding that. And so we are in an advocacy role on a regular basis, but we are not an official lobbyist.
I just would like to tell our audience a little bit about you. So in the middle of our program, we are Forum 360, and today we are speaking with Holly Harris Bane, the president of Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education. We're really glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please resume your question.
So I do want to say just a few comments about the board. NOCHE is very unique in the state of Ohio. There's no other higher education business entity where the board is made up of an equal number of higher education presidents and CEOs or senior leadership of major industry sectors of Northeast Ohio. We have a counterpart in the South called SOCHE, but again, it is just all higher education presidents. And I mentioned to you earlier in the program that we had just finished a national scan looking at other educational consortiums similar to NOCHE, and we have found only one other nonprofit educational business, higher education business consortium in the United States, and that's a national organization made up of national companies. And I think the only university from Ohio is Case Western Reserve University. So it's a very unique board made up of an equal number of business and higher education presidents coming together on a regular basis to talk about issues and concerns around the economy and the talent supply that help drives the economy in Northeast Ohio.
Oh, well, it sounds like it's a nice balanced arrangement. When you did your higher education impact assessment, there were some specific areas you covered. One in particular, attainment and completion of degrees. And I wondered if you would talk a little bit about that and what you see happening there, but even more specifically, the whole issue of remedial education, the need. Do you address that at all?
NOCHE does not address remedial education. I mean, certainly that is a topic that all of our institutions of higher learning, especially our privates and our four-year public institutions, have had to address over the years. And there's been a lot of movement and conversation between our higher education partners how to address that. But I do want to, so let me step back and say that in terms of access, which was one of the early question related to the impact assessment, one of the things we wanted to look at is how well we are doing in Northeast Ohio and where we need room for improvement among our colleges and university in terms of creating college access and retention and degree completion. And one of the things that we found that we were pleased with is that in comparison to the other regions of the state, our Northeast Ohio colleges and university are doing a better job at bringing in and creating access for first-generation college students, minority students, Hispanic students, and in speaking to the first-generation college students, our universities have done a great job at embracing what has been a very long running program called College Credit Plus. It's been called different things over time, but it's the opportunity where students have the ability to take courses at the college level that count for college credit and high school credit. So our universities have been targeting especially first-generation college students, other students in this initiative, and we save the taxpayer families in Northeast Ohio about $20 million a year in terms of college tuition. So we've been committed to access in higher education and degree completion and retention.
You also talk about talent supply, and you were telling us, you may have already covered this, about how you help choose, if there's a way for you to help students choose their career paths. And you have already spoken about the collaboration between universities and post-secondary, and they're very cognizant of helping students. So I think we've answered the talent, or is there something else you'd like to say about that?
Just that it's an ongoing, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's an ongoing conversation. Historically, if we go way back to when I entered college, the thought process was that this is one of the times in life that our parents and other individuals who are mentors to families, you let the student go into college, be undecided, explore, and that's true and that's wonderful. But the flip side to that is making sure that our students understand at a young age what the different opportunities are in Northeast Ohio specifically, within our region, within our state, and actually nationally, what the emerging industry sectors are and whether one can earn a living wage. And so that process has been very active, I would say, for the last 15 years, to a point where we oftentimes say we're now doing intrusive advising, which sounds a little bit heavy-handed, but students do need to get that information. So when they do invest a lot of time and resources and their family into a college education, they do understand that they will be able to have a job upon graduation.
And in terms of affordability,
I knew that was the next question.
Affordability,
because I just brought it up.
It's on everybody's mind, and
I know.
it is a national discussion,
It is.
and it is a key topic and concern. It can be a block from people
It is.
going to college. I wondered what your strategies are to help.
So let me
students.
talk just kind of big picture around it, because I think that it's a complex issue that a lot of people don't totally understand. One of the things that I do want to state is that when I entered into working in higher education, the state of Ohio provided about 75% of the tuition dollar needed for a student to graduate from college. Now, based upon the numbers that one could look at, it's anywhere the state support for a student is either 15% to 25%. We have had a major history of defunding higher education in the state of Ohio, to the point that the state of Ohio is now 45th in the nation in funding higher education. The flip side to that, and I'm going to step into my political science mode, if you look at your state budget, there's not a lot of discretionary dollars that state legislators can utilize to fund the various projects or initiatives that are important to a state, whether it's the criminal justice system, whether it's K through 12, whether it's higher education, and those discretionary dollars get less and less. At the same time, as funding has gone down from the state, the cost of higher education for things such as providing health insurance for faculty, for staff, the technology and the tools that are needed to teach students has gone up. And so we have really seen this gathering storm over the years where the burden has really landed upon the student and the family of the students to pay for education. So the other thing that I wanted to mention in relationship to that is that one of the things that we did look at in the impact assessment is how are our institutions of higher learning doing to help with affordability issues. Students, if they stay in Northeast Ohio to go to college, are going to save about $3,000 a year in terms of their tuition. And the institutions in Northeast Ohio have spent quite a bit of time raising dollars to help with college scholarships. So when you see the ticket price of a college education in Northeast Ohio, regardless of the institution, most of our universities have found a way that the students are paying very little or no more than 40% of that tuition. It is a serious issue. And the other thing that makes it serious is if our students spend a lot of time hopping from institution to institution and accumulating debt and accumulating unneeded credit hours. So it's a complex issue that we are constantly looking at and trying to find ways to aid families, such as the College Credit Plus program, where you can earn up to a year to 2 years of college education prior to graduating from high school.
Oh, it sounds like you're very aware of it and you are trying different strategies to help them.
Our universities certainly are.
That's fantastic. At this point in time, it sounds like to access this information, the counseling services and school districts have this information. They're in communication with NOCHE,
NOCHE.
And I thought perhaps there's just so much more information if people want to go to your website and find out more, but I thought perhaps I'd give you a minute. Let me just give your website very quickly, and this will also be scrolled. www.noche.org. Your offices are located in Independence. Please make some closing remarks of something you would like to leave our audience.
I would just like to encourage the individuals watching the show today to come to the NOCHE website, learn more about what is working within higher education and the business community, what we are doing to collaborate together to address the economic development needs of our region. Research after research after research in the United States and in the state of Ohio indicate that the best access toward a middle-class lifestyle is by achieving a bachelor's degree. It used to be that we would say any form of post-secondary education, and that's certainly true, but if you look at the current research, put out through a whole variety of organizations. Achieving a bachelor's degree is the best access to a middle-class education. The state of Ohio does have a goal that by 2025, 65% of the adults in the state of Ohio will have some form of post-secondary education. We cannot just focus on the traditional age students, but that's also the adults who have dropped out of college, have stopped out of college, need to come back, continue to get certification, continue to get micro badges, continue to get whatever degree is needed in their industry sector, and continue to pursue their education, because it is a lifelong process. And I appreciate the time.
I really appreciate you coming today. I want to thank Holly Harris Bane, President of Northeast Ohio Council on Higher Education, for educating us on their work and impact on the region. For more information, as we spoke, go to the website www.noche.org, and you can see the various services, the research findings, and statistics and activities of this organization. This is Pat Simons for Forum 360, a global outlook with a local view. Thank you for joining us, and have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Acronist.com, Hudson Cable, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.